Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and if you were not aware, very recently there was a Championship League or Champions League tournament in Japan. This is a post-rotation tournament. Some people have been saying it's the first post-rotation tournament. It's not, but it is the first major one that I have seen. The first one that's like very large, as it is 5,000 players. The Champions League tournaments are at least in terms of in-person tournaments, which are the biggest ones are generally bigger than the online tournaments. Those are they work differently, but these are like the second biggest outside of the World Championships. So there's going to be a handful of Champions League tournaments, and as I said, they're massive. So these are a really cool idea of getting to see the metagame. Specifically, this is the post-rotation metagame in Japan, which I believe is the exact same, or essentially the exact same post-rotation metagame as we'll get internationally, which will be in March at some point. If you play in tournament, it will be in April. In tournaments, it will be April. But regardless, this is really cool to look at as we get to see some about this. There are, looking at the website Limitless, you can see a bunch of tournaments here on this website and on this tab, and most of these are regular like international standard. There are some in Japanese standard, which is the format in Japan. It's in I think a few other places as well, but predominantly in Japan, as we can see, like say with this Champions League as well. But these are like I'd say bigger tournaments. Some of them aren't all that massive, but some are quite large. And then there's City League tournaments. These are in Japan. Here it says Japanese City League tournaments. These are local events that are hosted by card shops and typically capped at 64 players. The tournament results give the top 16 results generally. And you can get a really good idea of what people are playing by looking at these. There isn't really like data on these, versus if you look at say the deck data and you look at Japanese standard, and then you'll be able to see these tournaments here and results from those. And so, for example, Milotic EX was really did very well at this, or what I've called wall stall. I will be calling this deck wall stall, and it is it's a very good deck. So if we look at these statistics here for the top 16, again, this is just the top 16. This doesn't necessarily represent the whole metagame, but yeah, we'll be taking a look at this, and it's kind of like an example or a look into the metagame. Milotic EX was played 4 times, so the Frallier deck did also play it. I don't know what's in this Blissey deck. I forget. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. This is definitely a bit of a wall stall deck as well. And then there's a bunch of different stuff. So let's just kind of hop into it. But Milotic was the highest performing deck. The Noctowl Tera box is a really interesting deck, probably one of the decks I'm most excited for as well. We'll start off with the Milotic deck. We can look at the card count, and this deck played some different things. 4 people played it, and some differences. But I'll just take a look at the top deck list here. Or no, we can take a look at all 4. That's probably fine. And these are, as I said, pretty similar. The highest placing one ended up finishing 4th. Honestly, between finishing first and 16th, it's a few games, and it could just come down to luck at that point. So don't be like, oh, for Alligator, it's like clearly better than all these other decks because it came first. But regardless, we have this list here. I looked up all of them. And we can see what's going on with them. But Milotic EX is the main Pokemon. I don't think Milotic EX is that good. I'm not gonna lie. I think it's okay. I think it's mediocre. But the differences in the lists we see here, we just see some different cards. Nothing too crazy. We see some different like trainers and some different Pokemon and stuff like that. I don't see any immediately major differences though. This one plays 3 Colossus Tenacity, which is kind of interesting. Looks like the other ones don't. We see Monkey Dory in one of the in 2 of the lists and stuff like that. But regardless, Milotic EX, if you don't know, is a Pokemon with an ability called Sparkling Scales. Prevent all damage from and effects of attacks from your opponent's Tera Pokemon done to this Pokemon. And you have an attack here for 3 energy, Water Colorless. Colorless 160, your opponent's active is now asleep. We see some energy acceleration to attack with this easier. We see Crispin, which can get 2 energies from the deck. They do need to be of different types, so that hardly matters in this deck really at all. And basic energies. And then you also see TM Turbo Energize in, I believe, all the lists, and we also see Counter Gain as well. It doesn't matter if you're like a turn later and attacking that much, though. Milotic EX's ability is really the star of the show. And looking at the metagame, where's the metagame? Looking at that, we can see, well, the most played deck, the highest percentage played deck was Milotic EX here, or this, like, as I said, wall stall is what I'll be calling it. But then you see Tera Box. I assume Tera Box is playing lots of Tera Pokemon, and so that deck you will be walling off. Though that is definitely a pretty interesting deck here. It's not all Tera Pokemon. Lily's Clefairy EX is an attacking option, and it's definitely not a Tera. Though you will be dealing with that decently well. Then you also have Goldengo EX. Goldengo is not a Tera Pokemon. You have Feraligatr, which is definitely not a Tera Pokemon. Blissey, which we'll get to. Charizard EX and Dragapult EX are both Tera Pokemon, as well as Flareon EX. Raging Bolt EX plays some, but certainly not based around that. And Ends Zoroark EX is also not a Tera Pokemon. So some of the metagame you are walling with this, though not all the metagame. My biggest critique of this deck, or this card, is that I think Mimikyu is generally better. Because it's a basic. Milotic EX is a stage 1, obviously, evolving from Feebas, which has 30 HP, which is certainly less than 270. Also playing this Feebas, I feel like... Oh, wait, no, never mind. Yeah, I was going to say the best Feebas is the one with Ascension. This card's good. It's rotating, so yeah. And I thought there's a Feebas was Submerged. There is not. I was getting confused with I think the new Misty's Magikarp actually, but regardless, yeah, that's pretty vulnerable. So if you don't get that evolved with like your team evolution, then you're going to be struggling, which is obviously kind of bad if you never get your Milotic EX, your main attacker into play. The other attacker here, the main one, I guess, is Farigiraf EX. You also have Cornerstone Master EX, and then you have Mimikyu in some of the lists. Mimikyu walls all Pokemon EX, which is Tera Pokemon are a subcategory of Pokemon EX. Farigiraf EX is also going to be walling off a subcategory of Pokemon EX, only the basic ones, but its attack is better. Both Milotic EXs and Mimikyu EX's Milotic EX's attacks are better than Mimikyu's attack, which is what makes them better. And they both do 160. This one's for Psychic Colorless. This is actually a Tera Pokemon, and then you do 30 to 20 your opponent's benched Pokemon. So I'm sure the mirrors may be interesting. I don't know. I was going to say, oh yeah, that's definitely interesting, but I'm not actually sure if that's true. Milotic puts them to sleep, which is definitely disruptive and okay, but it is a coin flip. So you have Farigiraf EX to wall off. Again, look at the metagame. The Tera Box, that's not going to have a great time against this. And then also Raging Bull EX, right? Raging Bull EX, if you don't know, Raging Bull EX and Dragapult EX are the 2 most played decks in Japan, and the best performing decks as well. It's not like they're just highly played. No, they're doing well. And so this deck has the Milotic EX to counter the Dragapult EX, which Mimikyu doesn't necessarily counter super well. They might have oh, my voice. They have Dracoloak, they have a Dragapult EX, which can hit the bench through place damage counters, though 2 of them do play Mist Energy, which will counter that. And then you also have, I don't know, do they play Dusknoir? They might. Where is the deck? Here it is. Yeah, so it looks, wait, is this the right deck? I think this is. So yeah, this one plays Dusknoir, which will definitely be, a bit of a problem for Mimikyu, not as a problem for Milotic EX or Farigiraf EX because they have this higher HP, or Milotic EX. Farigiraf is not walling you with Dragapult, and then with the Raging Bull EX, they might have Fan Rotom. I think that's pretty common. And that's a card which will one-shot your Mimikyu again, just like the Dracoloak. And then they also could have, they have things that could kind of get through it eventually. nothing's really going to be getting through that for Draft EX with its really high HP. And Munkidori as well, healing it up. Munkidori moving damage counters off to something else of your opponent's Pokemon. We see Pokevital A. Pokevital A is crazy to see, in my opinion, because how do I spell this? Oh, it's 2 words. Okay. Because I think this card is kind of, it's heal 150. I mean, that's a lot of damage, but then it can't be recovered. That like really doesn't matter, I feel like. But anyways, that is a part of the card. It's pretty straightforward. It's a bunch of healing, and then we see Hero's Cape in one on the list as well. Instead, obviously, as the ace spec, I feel like it's fine. I guess it's like not super inspiring, to be honest. I mean, it's not super strong, but I guess fills a niche within this deck. I've been hearing some talk about this deck. Obviously, I don't think this is a deck that's super on people's radar. This deck is like doing well in Japan. This is not just this tournament. It's like a top 10 deck. I don't remember off the top of my head. I will be doing a video, I believe in like probably around a week or so. Probably a little under that of what the like actual metagame is looking like with actual statistics, but I believe it's like top 10, a top 10 deck, in like the middle range of that top 10 based on plays. So it's definitely not some weird rogue deck, and it's I call it wall stall. There are different walls. There's Cornerstone Master Europon EX, which walls all Pokemon with abilities. I think Cornerstone Master Europon EX is amazing. I think it's like borderline broken. I thought this card when I saw it was one of the best cards I had ever seen, to be honest. I had it rated as like amazing. I don't have a consistent rating system for Pokemon cards. I wish I did. I don't. I like swap around and do like tier lists and different things, but this card was like, I thought this was broken. I stand by that. I think it's really good. Looking at the metagame, it's walling. It's not walling rageable. It's not walling rageable EX or Dragapult, which is like obviously kind of bad, but or Flareon EX. But I believe it walls everything else off on this list, including like all the attackers in the Milotic deck. I honestly don't know. Some of them hit through. I mean, Corso Master Aeropine EX hits through itself into anything, which is kind of cool. And then because normally it would be walled off by Milotic EX and for Giraffe EX, but anyways, I think this card's really good. There's not so much to talk about this deck, to be honest, though. You have the TMs and you have stuff going on. It's just a good counter to the metagame. It's relatively simple and straightforward. In some ways, I'd say this deck's the most similar to Snorlax. Snorlax is a more control-y deck. This is a more stall-y deck. If you don't, control is a deck where, or an idea where you're trying to stop your opponent from attacking by like removing the resources. And well, Snorlax is a trapping deck. Trapping, I personally put under control when I talk about it. Some people, I don't know, people call Snorlax a stall deck, but I think it's because of alliteration. But it's a trapping deck. This is a walling deck, and so I call it wall stall, which is a term used some. It's actually used on this website, but not exactly for this deck. But anyways, yeah, this deck's pretty good. It's not super in-depth. Theoretically, you could just play like tech options, I guess. I mean, these attackers are solid, so you can't just throw in like some random attacker that's really bad, because that will not work. They have some amount of healing, and then on top of that, they have a bunch of HP and solid damage. So you're not just going to be running through these Pokemon with like Drakecloaks, right? Your Drakecloak will be doing 70, and they'll be doing 160, and you'll lose. So that's something to consider there. Then there's also, Arven. This Arven package is like the engine. Obviously, you don't want lots of random Pokemon that are super vulnerable on your bench. You're not invincible. You're not gonna sit here and try to deny all 6 prizes. You're gonna try to deny, or you obviously don't want to give up 6 prizes. You're fine giving up like 5. That's probably a little close, but you can deny some. Oh, we see Luxurious Cape. I stand behind the fact Luxurious Cape or Hero's Cape on Mimikyu is one of the tankiest Pokemon in the game as well. I mentioned Pokemon like Van Rotom and Drakecloak, which are going to one-shot Mimikyu they can one-shot it. They do exactly 70. Luxurious Cape or Hero's Cape, cranking it all the way up to 170. They're 3-shotting you. You actually trade positively now with them. And on top of that, it's really hard for them to set up these attackers because they'll just run out probably. So yeah, you definitely have a really, really strong attacker there, which I like a lot. But yeah, Milotic EX and Giraffe EX are just really solid Pokemon. Obviously not good when not walling. The next most played deck, which is played by 3 people, is the Noctowl Tera box is what the deck's called. When I've been recording data, which I've been doing manually, which is kind of annoying, but it's kind of relaxing. I called it I think I called it Lily's Clefairy EX, like Lily's Ogerpon or something, Lily's Ogerpon box. So we have some different Pokemon here, a bunch of different Pokemon. A box deck, if you don't know, is short for toolbox. You have a deck with a bunch of different attacking options. So in this deck, you have, well, TMS Ogerpon EX isn't really an attacking option, and also a lot of times they are named after the engine. Noctowl is really good in my opinion. Well, I don't know. It's definitely really good. In my opinion, it's good in standard as well, though I don't really play it that much. I've heard a lot of people saying the power level is dropping like a ton with rotation, specifically in regard. Oh, also, I guess I didn't mention this with rotation. The wall decks, they don't wall the V stars, which is why people aren't playing them now. Not that they're not playing any of these cards, but why this deck isn't good. They don't do anything against the V stars really. Mimikyu and Cornerstone Massacre upon EX would wall them, but not the main attackers in the Fridgeraff EX and the Milotic EX. But anyways, you have Noctowl, which searches for 2 trainers on play on Evolution, which is really good. Drizzle and Talion engine, which was a little while ago by now. I think a few years. I don't remember exactly how long ago, but it was around 3, 2, I don't remember when it was last in standard, but it doesn't really matter. That engine was good, very similar to the Noctowl engine in my opinion. Noctowl, you do need a Tera in play. It's called what's it called? I think it's Noctowl Tera box. Not all the attackers are Tera, but you certainly have enough of them to have your Noctowl on. The main attackers are the Tera attackers I'll start with are TMS Ogerpon EX is kind of like the heart of the deck, I guess. Though there's only 2 or 3 energy switches in the deck, so it's not quite the same level as, Regidrake or V-Star. But and then you can move that to your different attackers, the grass energies to like Pikachu EX or Wellspring EX or Ogerpon EX, and then you also have Crispin yet again as a really strong card in this post-rotation format to get extra energies on the board. And then you have Pikachu EX, I mentioned previously. It's an amazing wall. Oh, we see a for Draft EX in this list too. But Pikachu EX is a Pokemon that cannot get one-shotted by damage normally. If they have Monkey Dory, they can get by that, and if they have certain other tech options, they can also get by it, and they can, of course, just like two-shot you. But this is a Pokemon solid for buying a turn. You see Turo scenario as well to buy yourself another turn, and also not get stuck. You see Latias EX. Latias EX is a really good Pokemon, giving all your basic Pokemon free retreat, especially important for Ursaluna EX. Basically the next highest retreat is actually Trapghost EX in this list, and then Latias EX, though it doesn't really matter. But you can still get stuck by a certain Pokemon that may have won this tournament, but with Turret Scenario you can get out. Then we see Wellspring Mass Ogerpon EX, and we see Sparkling Crystal as well. It works on Wellspring Mass Ogerpon EX. There have been some questions about it. I think they've been resolved, but regardless, it allows you to do 100 active, 120 snipe to the bench for 2 with Sparkling Crystal or 3, one of which is water. Probably the rest are like grass or something. There's only 1 water in this deck in all the lists. Wow, okay. So you can use Sparkling Crystal to essentially be that water, but you need to find that. We see Badoo for item lock disruption. We see Buddy Buddy Puff and Ditto. That's a cool combo. I haven't really seen that too much. I think it's good. Only in this, I believe, highest performing list. We see Lily's Clefairy EX does 20 more for each bench Pokemon, and we see Area Zero Underdepths. We see Trapghost EX in the one list, but getting a big bench is nice for getting lots of random Pokemon like Mew EX, Latias EX, Pheasantipti EX. These like solid support Pokemon. Of course, a bunch of attackers or a bunch of TMS Ogerpon EXs. 2, I guess, 1 or 2, as well as potentially multiple attackers, Fan Rotom, and then of course all your Noctowls. You have a massive bench, and getting the Area Zero Underdepths bumped is not an issue either, because you can certainly discard your Noctowls and probably some other things without minding much at all. So yeah, you definitely have some cool stuff going on there. Pikachu X is an attacking option. I've talked about it quite a few times. It's a very solid stellar attack, 300. And yeah, just quite good there. You only have 1 lightning, 1 metal. You have a bunch of grass, but you might need to rely on Sparkling Crystal there again if your energy situation is not quite ideal. And you don't have that much recovery either. You have Night Stretcher, 1 or 2 copies, 2 in most of these lists. Then of course you have Blood Mirror Luna EX for that big endgame attack. You have UEX, Pheasant Dip EX as well, which are attacking options. I guess Latiax EX is even an attacking option as well. Reasonable EX and Dragapult EX, as I said, are the best decks, and they don't have weakness, but Liz Clefairy EX does give them Psychic weakness, which is really cool. And I guess you could copy UEX to knock him out as well. I haven't really thought about that before, but that seems really cool. It's easier to knock him out with Liz Clefairy EX, but that does seem like a fun combo to pull off to one-shot certain Pokemon there. This deck's really cool. I might do a full deck breakdown. I'll probably be playing this some post-rotation, maybe pre-rotation as well. You cannot play, obviously, all these cards pre-rotation, but it does seem cool, and I want to mess with it. Also, shout out to Ogre's Mask. That card seems so cool, which is actually spelled differently. It's spelled like Ogre, like O-G-R-E, as opposed to O-G-E-R. So if you're looking for that, keep that in mind, as I just misspelled it and typing for it, or searching for it. But it says you swap an Ogerpon in play, or EX in play, with an Ogerpon EX in the discard, which seems really cool. I think Corsair Mask Ogerpon EX is legit in these decks as well, and I'm really excited to play with this deck. It's one of my favorites. But then we have the other decks. Goldengo, I feel like there's not too much to say. Goldengo is still good. It's not like, oh, what? These are, okay, the one is Goldengo Dragapult. Okay, this deck we do need to talk about some. The other is like a generic Goldengo. It plays, Energy Search Pro. It plays a new stadium to get back lightning energies, which is certainly fine. It's like good, but not super interesting. And we see Dudunsparce as an engine, just because, I guess. But Goldengo Dragapult is really cool. This deck, I don't know. I mean, it's not anything crazy, but it's Goldengo EX and also Dragapult EX. We see Crispin, Superior Energy Retrievals, Energy Search Pro. It's a mix of the two decks. You have Dracoloak and Goldengo EX as engine cards, which aren't super strong. You are losing the Curlia, Lipard, Barrel, Rotom V, Lumineon V, Force Seal Stone, Pokestop, Radiant Greenage, which are all like engine cards, or kind of parts of engines. And you're losing all of those, and there might be some other ones as well that I'm forgetting, but yeah, you're losing all the stuff, so you're like dealing with a weaker engine, but you kind of piece together what you got in this situation. And this definitely seems really interesting. It's a deck that's like fine in my opinion, but it has been popping up and hasn't been getting too much talk. And Zoroark EX, I'll talk pretty quickly about. You copy a benched Ends Pokemon events BP up to accelerate darkness or your energies to your bench Pokemon. Enstormantan EX Enstormantan has 2 attacks. Your first one says you do 30 for each basic energy in your points discard, which is fine. And then you also have your second attack, which I've seen translated as Darmanican, so I'll call it that. Discard all energy from this Pokemon, which can just be a reversal. You do 90 active, 90 snipe, which is cool. I think this is a really important attack and maybe the main one of the deck. Then Ends Reshiram, which can do 170, which you can copy. Or you can do 20 for each damage counter on this Pokemon, which, assuming you don't get knocked out with Ends Reshiram EX, which is a big assumption, but if that does happen, then you will be able to swing for pretty massive damage there, and be taking one shots, presumably, and then also your ability is discard 1, draw 2, which is nice. I was saying it was rotating, but not on this. It's a 2-prizer. You can get free retreat with Ends Castle, but still not something you'll always have. But you also have Pekka EX, so you probably will pretty much always have it. And we see Binding Emoji as well, which is cool. And you damage yourself for Ends of Reshiram, though that seems mediocre. But Ends is also a deck I'm really excited for. There's a bunch of those. I'll open Charizard. Not really sure what's in this deck, to be honest. Okay, this is a Noctowl-based engine. Plays Trapghost EX, so it actually works, and Terra Orb's good. Not too much to say about this deck. You see substantial Trapghost EX pieces in it. See Briar, makes that's not that crazy. Rare Candy, no Pidgeot EX, but yeah, this is what Charizard EX is looking like, more or less. We see a bit of a Duster line as well, but it's fine. We also see Raging Bolt EX. I feel like I think there's nothing to say about this deck. It's playing Noctowl as well. Oh, it plays Baby Raging Bolt, which is kind of fun. Yeah, I mean, it's Raging Bolt, right? Raging Bolt EX is still a very good deck. Yeah, Noctowl is like good. It makes it more consistent throughout the course of the game, though less burst potential. It's definitely a little bit worse. I don't think it's drastically worse, though. I've always been a critic of the decks, like inability to survive and thrive at late game particularly well, but that gets a lot better with this package, in my opinion. Then there's, I think we looked at, no, we didn't look at Dragapult. I don't remember. I think we looked at Goldengo Dragapult. Wow, this deck looks very similar to ECU Jack. You could say it's kind of like in place of Lance, but Lance wasn't even that good. Yeah, not too much to say. Oh, we see Unfair Stamp. That's kind of surprising. We see EXP Share as well. So some kind of cool cards, but whatever. Then we see Blissey. Blissey, this deck's like kind of cool, but ultimately it's not like the Walls deck plays Blissey EX, plays Exchange Ticket, which allows you to get stuff out of your prizes, and a bunch of one-ofs, so that's kind of how that goes. Not too much to say here. Blissey EX is a cool card. Losing double Turbo Energy is like really bad for it, I guess, or it's bad. You're losing a number of decent cards for it. Not that Blissey EX has been a dominant card, but whatever. And then the deck that I've talked about before, but is the one that won the tournament, which is for Alligator with Milotic EX as a walling option, which seems like it'll get stuck in the active after you hit and run into it, but whatever. And then attack with it, maybe. This deck, I've said it, I think it's horribly inconsistent. You have okay, we do see an Ultra Ball, which I think is necessary, and you have Team Evolution to get your evolutions. I've talked about this. I made a whole video, so I'm not going to talk about it too much here. However, you obviously have for Alligator, which can take big one shots, can hit and run, or can trap. Totodile as a trapping option is legitimately really good. I think it's one of the best in the game. I don't think it's the best, but I think it's up there post rotation, or it might be the best actually. It's probably like tied for the best. I don't know. Maractus is better. Maractus might get its full video, which is crazy. But Totodile's pretty good, and you have Relicanth. When Relicanth seems a little sketchy. I've always found the Monkey Dory stuff to be mediocre. Like you need to get lucky to get it up and going with all your other stuff, unless you're just walling for tons of turns, in which case you just win anyways. But regardless, I think this deck's good. As I said, I made a whole video. But I hope you enjoyed. Consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, all that good stuff. And as I say, excited to see you in the next video.